tonight, the impeachment investigation rolls on. The latest on the inquiry and how people across the country feel about it. Plus, an end to the ceasefire in Syria. Does it mean the Turkish attacks will begin again? All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Russia ups its influence in the Middle East. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. A major development tonight out of Syria as Turkey and Russia reach an agreement that hopefully can make the temporary ceasefire permanent.
CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips is following the developments and begins our coverage tonight. Eric?
Jenna and John, with a little more than an hour before the ceasefire was set to expire, the presidents of Russia and Turkey came up with a deal. The agreement: both countries will jointly remove Kurdish fighters along Turkey's border in northern Syria and then begin joint security patrols there. As Russian forces moved in to assist Syrian President Assad in backing the Kurds, and American forces moved out, the presidents of Russia and Turkey held an emergency meeting Tuesday to come up with a solution just hours before the temporary ceasefire would expire.
The situation in the region is very tense. We all see and understand it. I think our meeting today is absolutely essential. I believe that the invitation here will be very beneficial to the critical period we are going through in the region.
The White House had said if the ceasefire expired and Turkey continued its invasion, the U.S. would use military force to stop it. As the clock ticked down, President Trump sounded just as invested in ending Turkey's invasion as he was in removing the troops that paved the way for it.
So the president used America's economic might, our economic power, to avoid a kinetic conflict with a NATO ally. And as President Trump tweeted that very day, there needed to be some tough love in order to get it done.
It's like two kids in a playground. They fight. You let them fight for a minute, and then you pull them apart. It was much easier to make a deal.
Here in the U.S., Senators Lindsey Graham and Chris Van Hollen met with the top political leader of the Syrian Democratic Council. Senator Graham expressing the need for a small number of American troops on the ground working with the Syrian Democratic forces.
My biggest concern is that the 10,000, 12,000 ISIS prisoners, every day that goes by, it gets more tenuous in terms of their security.
Well, Graham, who has been critical of the president for pulling American troops out of Syria, says he blames Turkey more than anyone else in this scenario. As for the possibility of leaving American troops in Syria, the president said Monday he'd be willing to leave a small number of troops there to protect the oil fields. John and Jenna, back to you.
Thank you, Eric. Well, CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Chris, we keep hearing that Turkey and Russia have agreed to remove the Kurds from Syria in the border. It may sound simplistic, but what does remove mean to you?
Well, I think what they're asking right now, John, is that YPG, this so-called terrorist organization that Erdogan has been talking about, would go back about 20 kilometers. And I think the Russians in the Syrian army are meant to monitor that. So I think it's not to be too much in the details, but it's not all the Kurds. And the agreement itself doesn't say the SDF, which is the Syrian Democratic Forces. Remains to be seen if some of those elements can stay. But at least part of the agreement would require the YPG, this group, to go back about 20 kilometers.
Chris, who do you think the real winners and losers are in this agreement?
The winners and the losers, Jenna, I would say that, first of all, the big winner has to be Russia. Russia is now a mediator and a very strong power broker in that region. I think one of the losers would have to be Erdogan as well. He didn't get everything he wanted. He wanted this 400-kilometer long, 30-kilometer wide buffer zone. He didn't get that. He did get a small zone that some Turkish forces have already taken. I think the biggest winner, another loser has to be the United States. They're diminished in their prestige and their power there. And the biggest losers of all, Jenna, have to be the people of northeast Syria. Hundreds dead, hundreds of thousands displaced. Many may never go back to their homes and right now facing an uncertain future.
Chris, just explain the importance of what would be the importance for U.S. troops to remain in eastern Syria.
Well, I know this is one of the central points of Senator Graham's message or his bill is that they would be there not just to protect the oil fields, which is very important, but also to maintain a presence to fight ISIS, and perhaps most of all, to be a barrier against Iranian influence that would want to come into the region and have a land bridge or a bigger land bridge on its way to here in Israel. So I think that's some of the strategic reasons why the U.S. should be there in eastern Syria.
Chris, we've seen a rare moment of bipartisanship on Capitol Hill with lawmakers sanctioning or coming up with sanctions for Turkey. What role does the U.S. Congress play now?
Well, I think they play an actually big role. One will be Senator Graham and Senator Van Hollen that was mentioned in Eric's report. I think their bill could have make a big difference in how the U.S. presence perhaps re-enters the region. There's also international discussion between Russia and Germany and an international coalition. The U.S. could be part of that conversation, and I think the Congress will have a lot to say about that. And Mitch McConnell has a bill that I think might tie the hands of the president, if it's veto-proof, that it would require that if ISIS that the administration would have to guarantee that al-Qaeda and ISIS, that their presence was removed before they can remove U.S. troops from the region.
All right, Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem, thank you.
Thanks, Jenna.
Well, more chaos in Israel after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu once again failed to form a coalition government. Netanyahu faced a similar fate in a historic back-to-back election in the Jewish state, the first back in April. This time, instead of Israelis immediately going back to the polls, opposition leader General Benny Gantz has been asked to see if he can forge a coalition. Netanyahu says he tried to work with Gantz to bring together a unity government, but with no success.
Gantz, Lapid, and Lieberman only talk about unity. In practice, they do the complete opposite. They encourage division and boycott. They reject the religious.
An unprecedented third election could take place in Israel, likely in March.
And now to the latest on impeachment. Another witness testified behind closed doors on Capitol Hill today.
Earlier, though, President Trump made headlines by calling the inquiry a lynching. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with a reaction to that comment. Ben?
Well, John, Jenna, House Democrats were quick to condemn Trump's tweet, saying that is one word no president ought to apply for himself.
I have answered this question now multiple times. If you want to talk—
That question centers around the president's tweet. All Republicans must remember what they are witnessing here, a lynching.
The fact is he has been relentlessly attacked by the mainstream media since before he took office. That's what the president's talking about here.
2020 rivals aren't buying it and push back with Senator Kamala Harris writing, lynching is a reprehensible stain on this nation's history, as is this president. Julian Castro added, it is beyond shameful to use the word lynching to describe being held accountable for your actions.
This is a political lynching. What is a lynching? A mob grabs somebody based on their color, their religion, and they destroy their life. Nobody's saying that the president is going to be physically hurt here, but this is mob rule. That's what lynching is all about.
Even some Republican lawmakers didn't quite agree with the choice of words.
That's not the language I would use. It's very clear that what the Democrats are doing here.
The catalyst for the infamous tweet could have been due to the testimony of President's acting ambassador to the Ukraine. It's Bill Taylor's turn in a revolving door of key witnesses. He first sounded the Ukrainian aid alarm in a text message to the U.S. ambassador to the EU. Taylor wrote, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. The recipient, Gordon Sondland, replied, the president has been crystal clear. No quid pro quos of any kind. Democrats say during closed-door testimony, Sondland said his message was dictated by the president himself.
Every single one of your reports start with behind closed doors, comma. He is not receiving due process. We all are aware of the situation in which Democrats are taking him behind closed doors, releasing selective things, not in context, trying to attack and destroy this president.
Now, the White House here behind me continues to ask for a full impeachment vote. Republican lawmakers have echoed that request, which would give them the chance to get involved in the inquiry, ask questions, and even call witnesses of their own. John, Jenna?
All right, thank you, Ben. Well, Chief Political Analyst David Brody joins us now for more. David, certain comparisons are generally thought of as off limits. For example, comparisons to Nazis and concentration camps. Likewise, did President Trump do himself any favors in drawing the impeachment inquiry and comparing that to a lynching, given its historical link to Jim Crow era?
No, he didn't do himself any favors. You know, Donald Trump has been loose with his words, and this is another case of that. But quite frankly, you know, add it to the long list where Donald Trump has been pretty loose with his words. You know, I talked to a conservative African-American supporter of Donald Trump a few hours ago at the White House. We're working on a story about the secret Trump voter. This was a secret Trump voter. His name is Devin Smart. And in 2017, he came out and said, "I'm for Donald Trump." And I asked him about the lynching comments. I wanted to get his take as an African-American. Here's what he said. It was a very interesting take.
Everyone on the media now is attacking him for using that word. But if you look at Governor Ralph Northam, he had the whole incident with the blackface. Still in office. He had an incident, the KKK scandal, still in office. And right now he's polling 51%. Still. So if the left they're so upset about a word of lynching, why do you still have someone in office right now that had blackface on?
David, how much do you think this is the president, you know, being pretty intentional and just trying to distract from other bigger stories and to, you know, influence the news cycle, if you will?
You know, I've heard this so many times that he looks to distract, and I guess to a degree that's true. I don't think in this case. I mean, I think in this case, you know, he's just saying words. He's tweeting out words. He's very quick with his tweets. I mean, because he does so many in a row. So I don't think this was about distracting. He called it a witch hunt. Now he calls it a lynching, and that is not the word, obviously, to use. But at the same time, you can make the argument that there have been political lynchings. We've used this term before. Maybe not here on Faith Nation, but we have used that term. And I went back in 1988 and looked at some of the language being used in Clinton's impeachment. And indeed, the protesters, wasn't the president, but the protesters back there were saying that Clinton was being lynched. They said, stop the lynching of Bill Clinton. So both sides do use this. We've heard this before.
And one memorable quote about lynching was the high-tech lynching from Justice Clarence Thomas during his Senate confirmation hearings. Former ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor, is on Capitol Hill today. Politico reporting how pervasive the efforts were to get Ukrainian officials to investigate Joe Biden in the 2016 election. How much does this raise the temperature when it comes to the impeachment inquiry?
It's the Democrats' best witness so far, for sure. I mean, not only is he saying that there seems to be a quid pro quo here, but he also talked about two different channels, an official channel and a back channel. And that was part of his testimony here, too. It raises all sorts of issues, all sorts of more questions that Democrats have to ask. Here's the problem. Here's the good news for Republicans and the bad news for Democrats. Because it raises more problems and more questions, time keeps ticking. The clock keeps ticking. And the longer this goes on, the more the public is probably going to lose a bit of interest. But more than that, you get into an election year, and you got major problems politically at that point as well.
David, is this dragging on too long? You know, the longer it goes on, the more it's been reported that this will not benefit Democrats.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. So they have a timetable. They want to get it done before Christmas. I can't see that happening because don't forget, not only do they have a lot more questions to ask, but a lot of it is behind closed doors. So they already have a perception problem that a lot of this is secretive and what's being leaked from these transcripts and meetings. So I think we're going to have to wait and see, but we got a lot more to unpack.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm exhausted.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
William Bennett served as the Secretary of Education during the Reagan administration and as drug czar under President Bush at the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Dr. Bennett is also a radio host and best-selling author, out with a single-volume edition of America, The Last Best Hope, which hits stores today.
And Dr. Bill Bennett is here with us now. First of all, Dr. Bennett, thank you for joining us and congrats on your new book.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
So we want to talk about your book, but
Good.
First, a little bit of news of the day. The president, obviously, under a lot of fire for his decision regarding Syria. Do you support his policy there?
No, I don't agree. I've usually agreed with the president, but I think this was a mistake. I liked your report from, was it Jerusalem, Chris?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where he said, look what's happened. The U.S. has lost. The Turks have lost, and they initiated this. The Russians have won, and a lot of people have been killed. That's not a good situation. That's not a good outcome. Now the president may have to face the fact that he will have to send in military, use kinetic force, is the euphemism we use now, into the situation. That's a shame. This is not what he wanted to do. And I think this was a policy that just got off on the wrong foot.
Dr. Bennett, to the impeachment inquiry, Democrats are holding their investigations in secret behind closed doors. Do you think they should be done in the public eye? And if so, do you think it would bolster their credibility?
Sure, it should be in the public eye. I mean, that's how the Clinton discussion went. That's how the Nixon thing would have gone on. And they're just dragging this out. You know, it will be 3 years now, and 3 years of the Trump presidency, all the Democrats have tried to do is get rid of him. Think about that. Maybe they can go all 4 years and say, you know, for the entire term of his presidency, we didn't acknowledge that he was commander-in-chief and leader, and we tried to get him out. No, the secret proceeding doesn't do any good. Look, with the Clinton thing, there was disagreement, obviously, but everyone knew there were serious grounds for proceeding with impeachment. That's not the case here, particularly when most of the evidence is secret.
Do you think it's fair for him to call this a public lynching?
The president is visceral in his reactions. I don't know if you've noticed that, but he tends to say the first thing that comes into his head. Yeah, I think it's okay. As I think you pointed out, high-tech lynching is what Clarence Thomas said. The Clinton protesters talked about lynching. Lynching has become a term much more broadly in use. The problem here, or the offense here, I think, on the part of many people is that the left feels that word is its property only and shouldn't be used by someone who's conservative.
Let's talk a little bit about election 2020. Democrats, they're making a lot of promises to the American people. Are these programs that they're proposing, Bill, are they affordable?
No, at least we haven't heard how they're affordable. Senator Warren is now, you know, under the gun to try to explain how she's going to pay for all this. You know, Medicare for everybody, every illegal immigrant gets every benefit possible. All these things, look at the price tag. And when that campaign for president begins for President Trump, I think these things will be pointed out. As a former Democrat, many years ago, I am shocked by this party, how it went so far left so quickly. And they better pull this thing back or they'll go off the cliff.
We can't let you leave without talking about this book. A little light
can't let me
reading.
leave. That's why I came.
A little light reading. We don't expect you to boil everything down from this multi-volume book into in one setting, but tell us a little bit about why you wrote The Last Best Hope.
No, I mean, but you're kidding, and my kidding back is I think, illustrative. A lot of books out by conservatives now, you know, why left-wing people are stupid, why the, you know, liberals are destroying America. 80-page books, 90-page books. That's a 980-page book. I asked you if you'd read it this morning before the show. You hadn't, I understand.
Still making my way through.
But, okay, good. But it's a big story. You know, we're only 250 years old or 243 years old. But it's a big story, and there's a lot to say. The reason I wrote the book is it is the greatest political story ever told. We are a uniquely blessed nation by our God, and our children do not know this story. What they're getting on TV, what they're getting in a lot of their classrooms is propaganda. They need to know the story, the truthful and honest story, and I'm proud to say this book has been well reviewed by both liberals and conservatives.
Real quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Are you hopeful for America?
Yes, but bear in mind that John Adams and George Washington believed maybe we'd last 50 or 100 years. We've gone a lot longer. We have a lot of bounce in us. We have the capacity for self-renewal. We can do it.
Yes, congratulations again, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Republicans and health care. Up next, some of the ideas they are proposing.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
The president has long promised what he calls a phenomenal healthcare Republican plan. And today we saw a blueprint of that plan. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson brings us a first look and reports on how Republicans say their plan doesn't resemble anything close to government-run healthcare or Medicare for all. Abby?
That's right, Jenna. Today's event was designed to show the Republican-introduced alternative to the Democrat health care proposals, which they argue either double down on the, quote, failed status quo or force all Americans off their current insurance plans.
Protect, empower, personalize.
That's the tagline.
For my father. For my brother. For my children, for my grandchildren.
Designed to focus on the individual, as the Republican plan promises quality, affordability, and choice.
Socialized medicine does not work.
Instead of a single-payer government system.
Healthcare is a right, not a privilege.
Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan would raise taxes on the middle class.
Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it, yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here.
A plan Senator Elizabeth Warren supports, but she's waffled on how to pay for it.
At least Bernie's being honest here and saying how he's going to pay for this and that taxes are going to go up. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but you have not said that. And I think we owe it to the American people to tell them where we're going to send the invoice.
California Democrat Ro Khanna is the co-chair of Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign.
But I do think you have to level with the American public of how you're going to pay for it.
In an interview with Faith Nation anchor Jenna Browder, Khanna told CBN News Medicare for All isn't free.
People will have to pay some premium.
The centerpiece of the GOP framework is protecting Americans with pre-existing conditions.
We want to protect pre-existing conditions by treating those who are self-employed the same way we treat those who get insurance through their job.
Republicans say reforming the tax code and increasing tax-free contributions to health savings accounts will help Americans create personalized, affordable care.
Our plan puts the patient and the physician back in control.
Louisiana Republican Mike Johnson says House Republicans are working in tandem with the president.
There'll be a lot of parallels between what we're proposing and what the administration ultimately presents.
Well, last March, President Trump said that the Republican Party is going to be the party of health care. And in a phone call with RSC leaders ahead of the rollout of Part 1 of their plan, the president reportedly told them to go get them. Back to you, John and Jenna.
Coming up, how the Washington National Cathedral is celebrating an historic World Series appearance by its hometown team.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Jen, are you excited?
I am. What about you?
I think I'm excited. The 2019 World Series begins tonight, and it's down to the Houston Astros and our hometown team here in D.C., the Washington Nationals.
That's right. This is the first time the Nats have ever made it to the World Series. And as you can probably imagine, people are a little bit excited here, including us. People across the city are celebrating, including the Washington National Cathedral. Folks there are getting in on the excitement by decorating some of the statues. You can see them here wearing the classic logo, curly W, baseball cap. John, do you have one of those hats?
I do have one, and we saw a couple here in the newsroom.
We need to bring them in tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.